to discuss why this conversation is so important and why collaboration and courage is really needed to build an ACE-aware nation. Please welcome the co-organiser of this event and director of TIGERS, Pauline Scott.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Gary, for the introduction. It's an absolute privilege to be speaking to you this morning, and I am so proud that our organisation, TIGERS, along with our partners at Connected Baby, are hosting this conference today. And that over 2,000 people, and some as late as this morning who turned up who wanted to be part of that conference, have decided to spend their day talking about how we progress towards making an ACE-aware nation in Scotland. The fact that so many people have chosen to spend their day here today tells us that we really, truly want to get it right for every child. And I was looking at a quote last night that I'd seen that said, we worry about what children will become tomorrow, yet we forget that that is someone today. So I suppose one of the key questions that we have to think about today is, while we worry about the future of our children, what can we do now? What can every one of us do when we leave here today to change the lives of children and young people in Scotland? And every one of us here has the power to do that, no matter how small or how big. Today we're going to hear from some of the key voices across Scotland who are working in the lives of children and young people, who are raising awareness across Scotland about the impacts of adverse childhood experiences, of toxic stress, and what happens in the biology of children, and how it activates that stress response, and it can potentially lead to negative outcomes with health and with education and overall child development. And we're also going to hear from some leaders within organisations and schools who are making positive change in their organisations every day. Leaders who have gained a knowledge and an understanding of ACEs, and they've taken a whole team approach to learning about the science and really have the courage to take that awareness and put it into action. And that is one of the things that's required, is that courage. So if I can just take you back to how this came about for TIGERS and why we ended up being the host of this conference. We were inspired by the documentary Resilience, an excellent documentary by the filmmaker James Redford. And we seen that in Glasgow last year. And one of the key contributors to that was Dr. Nadine Burke Harris. And we were really bowled over by not just about her knowledge, but the fact that she was putting that into practice in her youth centre in San Francisco. And the fact that we understood behind that story was probably a lot of adversity, a lot of struggle, a lot of doubters. And we were really inspired to think, how did this leader do this? How does she take this knowledge and this science and get it out there and put it into practice every single day? So my colleague Suzanne Zedike and I had a conversation, and we said, how do we spread the awareness of ACEs more in Scotland? How do we get more people to know about it? And we said, well, we could maybe have a gathering of people. We could maybe get 300 people together. We could maybe put on an event. Well, maybe we could think bigger than that. Maybe we could invite Dr. Burke Harris to come to Scotland. Okay, let's do that. How do you go about doing that? And you know what you do? You write an email, you ask her to come, and she came back and she said yes. And we thought, okay, it won't be 300 people. It might be 1,000 people. Okay, we need a big venue. Let's go to the Armadillo. And all of the time, and I will be truly honest with you, I sat back and I thought, can we do this? Are TIGERS the right people to be doing this? Do we know enough about this? But what I realised, it's not about how much we know about the science. It's about what our intent is and our intention every single day. And TIGERS works with young people in our organisation, and we work with children at Lullaby Lane every single day. And when I talked to our team, they said, absolutely, we're committed to this, we want to be part of it. So we decided, let's hold this conference today. let's hire out the armadillo. Let's see if we can get 1,000 people. And we've ended up here with 2,000 of our allies who want to truly make Scotland the best place to grow up. And I thank you for being here. And if I can just tell you where it started very briefly, because I do know that we're a wee bit against time. Very briefly, where it started for us, this image that you see here is our nursery at Lullaby Lane in Westerton in Bearsden. And we opened that nursery 5 years ago. And we opened the nursery because in TIGERS we work in different sectors. One of the sectors we work in is early years. And we had this idea, could we open up our own nursery? Could we have an ethos and a practice that is all about being child-led? And we opened up that nursery. And I would say what we did do is we worked from our instinct. I worked from my instinct as a parent. I worked from my instinct as a parent who had to leave her daughter in hospital and be away from her. And knowing that the only thing that I wanted was that if she woke up and I wasn't there, that somebody gave her a hug. Somebody was there with her, that would give her what she needed, would soothe her. And we worked from that instinct because I thought, children leave their parents every day, some of them for 10 hours a day. What does a nursery that really thinks about children's well-being, what does that look like? And one of my colleagues said to me, have you ever heard of Dr. Suzanne Zedek? And at that point I hadn't. And she said, you really need to get her in to think about, helping shape this ethos, thinking about the practice. And we brought Suzanne into our nursery. And we spent a full day with her. All our staff were involved in the training, and that has been an ongoing development for us. And we started to hone what we now call attachment-led practice. And what is happening in that nursery is that we are creating an environment of safety for our children. We talk about attachment all the time. We talk about attachment first. We talk about well-being first. When we think about attainment in this country, we talk about literacy and we talk about numeracy. But we should be talking about well-being, the emotional well-being of our children, and they don't ride alongside. They don't ride alongside each other. Well-being comes first. It's the top priority. And we said, okay, these children come to nursery and they leave their mummies and they leave their daddies. Do they know we work in a nursery? Do they know we're employed? Do they know this is someone's job? Or is that Auntie Donna? Is that Auntie Kelly? So what do we have to provide those children with? We have to provide them with love. And that's what we do. We use that word every single day. And somebody said to me, Pauline, you can't use the word love. That's not professional. I said, well, those children don't know that we're professionals. Those children think they're coming to spend the day with their family. And if they're away from their mums and dads, their carers, for 10 hours a day, if we are going to help those children to develop and to thrive, we must offer them that love. We must offer them that emotional availability and that connection every day of their little lives. And what we have to be courageous and brave to think about is that while we're regulated and while we've got paperwork, while we focus on that paperwork, we take that attention away from those children. And we have to stand up and we have to be brave in this country to say, yes, we have to be regulated, that's there for a reason, but it should not stop us doing what we are there to do, which is meet the emotional needs of our children. And if we are getting bombarded every day with paperwork and recording outcomes, how we help the children to meet the outcomes. So that is why we talk about love. And then we were doing that work at Lullaby Lane, and we were talking about attachment, we were talking about brain development. And we work with hundreds of young people every single year. We're probably working with about 1,000 plus young people every year. And I started to think, why do we not understand what's happening in the bodies and the brains of our young people? We're understanding it about our children. We need to think about what that means for our young people. And many of our young people were presenting with aggression. They were presenting with anger. There were young people who were potentially disengaged from school, from education, Some of them disengaged from their communities. And when we started to sit back and analyse, why are some of our young people disengaging? It was never about the skills. It was never about they didn't have the aptitude for the job. It usually has something to do with self. It has something to do with a family situation that happened, and the whole families went into chaos. They struggled with a transition into the workplace. They weren't able to regulate, but we didn't understand that. So when I used to meet young people and they wanted their hoodies up or they wanted their jacket over their mouths, I used to tell them to take them down. Let yourself be seen. Because I thought it was a sign of disrespect. What I recognise is protection. And what our team at TIGERS have done is we have learned about the science. We keep learning about it, developing those skills. But what we knew we had to shift from was not looking at those industry skills, but the human skills. That is our concentration in TIGERS. How do we help our young people to understand themselves, to understand where they've come from in life, and what are the barriers that they face, and how do we help them to regulate every day? What is happening in their brains and bodies and their biology every single day? And our team at TIGERS started to move to a much more relational approach, a much more human approach. Why are we scared as adults to show our humanity to young people? To show them that we have flaws? To show them that we are not perfect? Because when we get on that level with another human being to show our vulnerabilities, our flaws, our humanity, we make a connection. We build trust. We build respect. And that creates safety. And when our young people come into TIGERS and they feel safe, they are ready to learn. So our job, first of all, is to create that environment where they are safe and they are ready to learn. And there was an article in the paper last week, and it brought together our two businesses, because it brought together Lullaby Lane, because a young person in that photograph there is a member of our team. And it also brought TIGERS, who work with young people, because she'd just completed a modern apprenticeship. And if you didn't see that article spoke about feeling alone. A young woman who was just an example of other young people in our society who said she felt alone, who said she never felt like she'd ever achieved anything. That's not right. That's not right in our society, that we have young people through the difficulties they're facing in their home life, through no fault of their family. People are doing the best they can. Parents are doing the best they can. But she was in an environment which didn't feel safe. It didn't feel like her sanctuary. She trusted no one. And she didn't think that she could achieve. And what changed that for her, and that message of positivity, was relationships. She talks about her manager. She talks about her manager who gives her her time, who understands her, who has faith and belief in her. That manager is that significant person in that young person's life. She has been the buffer to the adversity that that young person has faced. And that is why she is thriving. And yes, she still has her difficulties, but she is thriving and she's achieving more than she ever thought she could achieve. And she had the courage last week to write an article and tell her story. And she said to me, I don't know if anyone will want to hear it. And I don't want people to feel sorry for me. And I said to her, nobody will feel sorry for you. Everybody will see your strength and your courage. And when I have spoke to her recently, she said, I am absolutely overwhelmed by the kindness that I've received and the comments that people have made. And she is a great example of when there is adversity in childhood, that it can be overcome, that we can start that healing process. So I had said to make Scotland an ACE-aware nation, what do we need to have? We need to have conversation. There are so many people sitting in this room who have heard about ACEs. There is people who have been talking about ACEs in Scotland for 10 years, but there's a lot more people who have never heard about adverse childhood experience in ACEs. There has been a massive shift from our government, who have ACEs as part of their programme for government. There is a massive movement in terms of grassroots in this country at the moment, and we need to keep raising that awareness. We need to have that awareness through our policymakers, across our organisations, because this is relevant to business as well. When people say, why would business need to know about adverse childhood experiences? Why did TIGERS need to know about it? Because we have people who work in our business, who work with young people, who work with children, who face their own adversities, who face their own traumas. We as employers, we as leaders, have a responsibility to support their well-being. We cannot ask people to nurture if they do not feel nurtured themselves. We must look after the adults who are present in the life of children and young people. So we need to get brave in our leadership, in our schools. We need to stand up when we know that policies have the potential to damage children. They have the potential to make children feel unsafe. And if we can go back to our instincts, our humanity, why we got there in the first place, why we wanted to work with children, that's where our policy should come from. That's where our practice should come from. And we need to keep having those conversations, because the more people that are having those conversations and telling their story, it encourages more people to do the same. So let's keep having these conversations. Let's keep talking in Scotland. There is a lot of work to be done. There's 2,000 people sitting here today who want to know more about adverse childhood experiences, but there is more people that we need to reach in our country to truly make it an ACE-aware nation. We need to collaborate. We need to work together. This can't be something that is for the Scottish Government. This can't be something that's just for the third sector. This requires collaborative working between the public sector, the private sector, third sector, policymakers, families, community groups. We can't get precious about this. This doesn't belong to anybody. ACEs don't belong to anybody. They're there. They're everywhere in our society, and we need to work together. And how do we do that? What stops us doing that? Trust can stop us doing that. We need to trust the intention of everybody. We need to trust and know and get to know those other organisations, those other businesses, find their values, find their intention, and let's put that into practice. That trust only comes with human connection. That trust only comes with your vulnerability. So let's get round the table, let's talk to other organisations, let's find out what they're doing, let's share practice, let's not be precious about it. If again our intention is to make Scotland an ACE-aware nation, then we must leave our egos to the side, and we must put the needs of our children at the heart of everything that we do, of all of our practice. And lastly, to do that, this is going to take courage. This is going to take strong leadership. This is going to take strong individuals coming together to stand up to say, this is the nation that we want for our children. This is the practice that we want every day in our schools. This is the practice that we want in our hospitals. This is the policies that we want across our government. That takes courage to stand up sometimes and say no. That takes courage to go back to our most basic human instinct and work off instinct. If I ask you one thing, I ask you to remember why you got into the professions that you did. And I know people are under pressure. I know there is different pressures across organisations. Demands are high. So what we need to do again is we need to practice that self-care. We need to look after ourselves first. And that in itself takes courage. Because we live in a society where self-care feels selfish. So we have to have the courage to stand up for ourselves, take care of ourselves, and have enough fuel to be able to look after the children and the young people in our country. And then we can create a nation that we truly want, where every young person and every child is truly deserving of meeting their potential. I hope you enjoy your day. Thank you very much for being here.
Ladies and gentlemen, Pauline Scott.